This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
And I'm Heather Branch here with John, asking for his insight on the things you can be working on now to better prepare for your financial future. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is where you can go to get more information, begin the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there, or again, find us anytime at RetirementSolutionRadio.com. As we get into the full throes of, it's not officially summer. I'm always bugged out that it's not officially summer until the end of June, because I'm like, feels like summer, looks like summer, let's call it summer.
It always throws me off when they say the official day of fall, the official day of winter. I'm like, it's been freaking cold forever, or it's been hot for 7 months.
I'm sweaty, and it's summer, the end.
If I have to reapply deodorant 3 times over the course of the day, we're just going to call that summer. I don't care if it's official or not.
That's right.
It's just how it goes.
So what better time of year than to bring up college football? It's always a good idea, John.
Great timing. Great timing.
Actually, I will say, though, I feel like the conversation about football has started creeping more and more into whenever we can, right? Whenever we can work football into the conversation. But it's summertime, like especially for college kids, it's time to start thinking about, making sure that you're on schedule and for the players and all that. This will be the first year in however many years when we do not have Coach Saban on the field. He will be spectating just like the rest of us.
Is he commentating anywhere?
I imagine he has
Fox
to be.
Fox or CBS or something maybe?
Something.
It'd be hard to not use his, not that he's that charismatic, right?
He's a little dry. He's a little dry.
Those Aflac commercials is probably the most that he puts out when it comes down to enthusiasm forever.
Yeah.
But it'll be weird.
That's right. Insight,
The first year that he won't be on a sideline somewhere screaming at young men.
That's it.
And making them do their jobs.
That's right. It's been now several months since the famed Alabama football coach announced he was retiring. But hear this. Hear this. His wife has very obviously been thinking about this, because there's this story that's leaked on the internet about how Miss Terry, everybody calls her Miss Terry.
Miss Terry.
Her, apparently, the day after he retired, boom, it appeared on some sort of table or chair of his. She had written out the 12 commandments of retirement, basically listing out. Miss Terry wrote down his marching orders for what she expects. Here's a little of what Coach Saban had to say about it.
The day after I retired, I got the 12 commandments of retirement. So I've tried to live by them, but I found out that if I do my chores, then I can go play golf. So I get up early and get my chores done, and then it's like, now do I have a free pass to go do what I want to do?
What are your chores?
I make my bed. I take the garbage out. I have to wait for her to eat together, and I have to leave a little food just because that's polite to tell people that you really thought it was good.
He has to leave food on his plate.
He's not part of the clean plate club?
No.
Miss Terry's not.
That's not polite.
She's against that?
Here's the thing that somebody said to me. I was talking to somebody else about this, and they were saying, if that note appeared the day after you retired, she has been thinking about this for a while.
Oh, you know it. And here's what's going on through her mind. Listen, I can get some new coach in the transfer portal to come retire with me any day, Bubba Jack. You may have been big on the field, but here at the house, you have not been pulling your weight, son. So this is how it goes.
This is how it's going to go.
But I think that this happens. I think this happens a lot, especially with successful people in their careers.
Yeah.
Where, there's been some person that's been, taking the forefront, and they've been doing the thing, whether it's making the money or whatever. And the other spouse, the other person in that relationship, they often take a lot of the slack, right?
They hold up a lot of walls.
Sure. I mean, even though my wife works with me in the company and she does stuff that I can never do, it's amazing how it kind of does still fall on her a lot for getting the kids ready to do things for sports and whatnot. And we always go to the games together, and I, have coached some of those things, but it's amazing the extra stuff that she really does is kind of expected of her to do. And frankly, she's better at it than me, like a lot better.
Right.
But we've been talking. It's just kind of like, hey, at one point in time when the kids are, out of the nest, we're talking years and years from now, what would we do with our time? And I remember her looking at me and she says, well, you're going to do a handful of things that I've been asking you to do for months and or years and or decades. Like, get the wallpaper out of that one room, and or get your junk out of this one area because I want to use that for a blank room. Take your pick on the blanks.
Perhaps Miss Tennille is taking a note out of Miss Terry's playbook, she's going to come up with
They've already been talking.
Commandments of retirement. All right. Well, then let's take this moment, John, and give you your space. Let's give you the floor because as a person who you professionally help people retire every single day. So while most of us, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're only going to retire once, you, by way of what you do, you retire every single day. So you've helped thousands of people do this. So with that knowledge, that wherewithal, what would you say if you had the chance to write down John Hicks' commandments of retirement? Doesn't have to be 10 or 12, but what would you say that those would be?
You know, the craziest thing is that even though I didn't think about it in that light, we've kind of done this in our office. And basically, they're the 5 commandments of retirement, if you will.
Okay.
Number 1, thine shall know how thy is protected.
Okay.
But here's the big thing, right? Everyone is worried that they're going to run out of money. And it doesn't matter who you ask. They're just fearful. Even if they've got millions of dollars, they're kind of like, man, but what happens if, I spend too much and I don't have enough?
Right.
You have to know how your money's protected. And it doesn't mean you have a specific strategy or a specific asset class or something that's guaranteed. It doesn't mean any of that. You just have to know if things go wrong, right? If we have another world war, if the economy just goes into the dumpster for 4 or 5 years, you have to know how much your money can go down with it and how much money is protected, right? I think one of the good feelings that we can all have about Social Security, at least at the very second, is that, hey, every month that should come in kind of like clockwork.
Right.
Now, in a few years, we may have a different conversation, but at least right now, we know that every month we're going to get that coming in, right? So the same thing with our assets. Number 1 rule, you have to know how much your money is protected. Now, you can be as risky as you choose to be, assuming your math works out right. Okay. But you have to know how much is protected. That's rule number 1, because if you don't know how much protection you have, then you cannot do number 2, which is what gets us retired. And that's create a lasting income stream. It's the biggest factor that we all think through, especially, I'm not going to say especially guys, because it happens to all of us, but guys are kind of like, man, when I punched this time clock the last time and no one's going to pay me every other week, where's that money going to come from?
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get money from Social Security or pension, but like, that's not all I need. Where's it going to come from? And in order to create that income stream, you have to know what portion of your money is protected against losses, whether they be market-based or anything, right? It's not just the market. You can lose money if interest rates change too much. You can lose money if volatility changes too much. All these things impact things. So you have to know your income stream. Protection number 1, income number 2.
Okay.
And the third one, which is not focused on enough by most of us. We think about it, we give it lip service, but we don't do anything about it, and that's taxes, right? We have to have the commandment of pay the least amount of taxes we can. Now, this is different than the way that most of us think. Most of us say, well, John, I had to pay an extra $623 last year. Yeah, that kind of stinks.
Yeah.
But in the long run, are you going to save $25,000 or $30,000? See, when I'm talking about saving the most we can in the form of taxes, I'm talking about over our retired life. Right. Whether we're currently working or we're going to retire in our retirement, I want us to try to pay the least amount possible to the government in the long run. Because it's one thing to save some money this year, but it's another thing over the next 20 years if you save a couple $100,000. I met with a couple the other week. Just by showing them the simple things that we do, they're going to save over $440,000, assuming they don't change the tax laws crazily in the next 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Jeez.
That's a ton of money. It's a ton of money. So if we understand protection, then we can generate our income. If we know where our income's coming from, we can plan it from a tax standpoint.
Okay.
Those are the first 3.
Yep.
The fourth one is wealth transfer. Some people say estate planning, but that's kind of implying that you and your spouse are both gone.
Okay.
And what we have found over the years is that unfortunately, one of us passes away for a couple, one of us passes away before the other.
The first phase of wealth transfer is the spouse that
is the surviving spouse.
Yeah.
And so that surviving spouse is often going to lose one of the Social Security baskets.
Okay.
They may be losing some pension money too, and they're going to be in a worse tax bracket unless they remarry.
That's
because
the ultimate
they're going to be
kick
a
in the
single
pants.
filer.
Is this that tax law, and people need to know that single single filers, very often you go into a higher tax bracket. It's just so frustrating.
So when you combine those things, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah, we need to make sure that that person is protected and they're not paying out the nose in taxes and they're going to have enough income, to be satisfied and there's money left over.
Yeah.
What goes to the kids and grandkids is all tertiary compared to making sure that one of the two members of that household right there, that they can last, right? Mm-hmm. So that's wealth transfer, and the last one's healthcare. The one thing that I have seen derail so many great plans is to not have some kind of a plan for healthcare. Now, I'm not talking about long-term care insurance. I don't typically love it. Some people, it does make a lot of sense if they're healthy and they do it early enough. But by the time that we typically look at long-term care, we're usually older and it's too late and it's too expensive. Okay. So I'm just talking about knowing what asset that you are earmarking your portfolio that you're not going to stress for any other reason.
Sure.
So that in the event that you do have to have health care costs, whether they be in-home care or pay for private pay, medical or whatever it is, that you know that asset will be tax efficient, it will be available for you, and you can't lose it all, right?
Yeah.
So if you put those 5 things together, protection, income design, tax strategy, wealth transfer, and defining how you're going to pay for healthcare. If you do those 5 things, those are not just 5 commandments. Those are the pillars of a happy and fruitful retirement. If you get that right, believe me, you're gonna have a really great, fortuitous future.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital. National license number 188279094.